Hey, this is V, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what happened in episode 12 of Mr. Queen. The title of this episode is Dancing on the Sword, and that's basically exactly what the king is doing this entire episode. We open with the fan fight between Byung-in. The king ends up winning this fan fight, shows everyone that he's not this pushover that they all think he is. Out in the woods, Hwa Jin releases the arrow. It shoots past the queen's head. The queen is like, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Don't you think that someone is trying to get us not to like each other? Hwa Jin's like, it just goes over her head. She's like, no, I just don't like you. You're not the kind of person you think you are. The queen says, look, forget it. Forget you. I'm just going to go live my life. I don't care what you think. She turns to walk away with her concubines who kind of saw this whole incident. And Hwa Jin shoots her in the back of the head with one of the painted arrows. It looks like it hurts. The queen falls on the ground. The concubines look like they want to protect her, but the queen's like, no, I can take care of it. But she doesn't, because she doesn't know how to fire an arrow. So anyway, the arrow falls and it's just pathetic. But the queen's like, I just let her get away this time. They go back to the woman's side of the party. The queen ends up winning because she got that tiger eunuch, and that was 10 points. So she wins the whole thing. She's really happy about it. They have a break where they walk away. When they walk away, the queen, her two maids, Hong-young and Choi, see the Han guy. And this is the Han Shil-jong guy from the future, but this is a dude that looks exactly like him in the past. The queen's like, what's he doing? Because he's talking to a eunuch, and he's talking to the eunuch that's always in the kitchen. So they're like, what's he doing? Maybe I shouldn't get involved. But she asks Choi to follow him. And then she has this back and forth in her head of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't get involved. Maybe I should. And ends up deciding that she will go kind of try to find out what this guy was doing in the, with that water supply in the kitchen area. She goes back there with Yoon. And they think he definitely put something in this water. But Yoon tells her not to taste the water or anything, just in case he really did put something in the water. The king comes storming into the kitchen area at that time, doesn't see the queen there, and tells the chef, him and the chef just talk about everything that's been going wrong today with the food and how they really need food. The king says he's going to try to find it. The queen comes out and asks him, why are you trying so hard? You should just give up. But the king tells her he can't just pretend like he's some dead body that's being trampled on. He needs to try to do something. He goes off to try to find something. The chef also goes off to try to find something. The queen's like, okay. She goes into the kitchen and sees that all the cooks are doubled over in pain. They're clutching their bottoms, like they just have to poop everything out. It looks like they have horrible diarrhea. Maybe they got dysentery or something from that poison. They're throwing up, some people, they're just super sick. They cannot cook anything. The queen is like, wow, this event is super duper ruined, especially if they can't cook anything. But she decides to try and help them out. She dresses like a cook person and pretends like she's a chef that had been brought in by the king in order to cook for this event. Everyone is like, you're the queen, except for the doctor who's like, how can she be the queen? She's dressed like a man. It's just funny. But anyway, the chef comes back in and he's like all on board. So he says, okay, what can we do? They gather the king's food. He has a special food area only for the king. They gather all his vegetables together. There's a lot of potatoes, a lot of tomatoes, a lot of kind of other hearty foods. And she asks if they have any chickens because she thinks she can make something with eggs. And what she ends up making with all these items is just Korean street food. Because she says, Korean street food is the food that has survived in this competitive environment in Seoul. So this is the best food that we need to give to these people. She makes it fancy though. So the first one is a potato. She carves the potato in one single carving and puts it on a skewer, then fries that and gives it to the politicians and everybody. She also gives a note to the king explaining what this is. The first one is spring food. She says it's spring food because it's just some food that's in the spring, and I think she just thought it was a really nice name. However, the king calls it dragon's beard food and says this food is important because potato is the vegetable that can get our people through the wintertime. It's hearty, it lasts a long time, and that's why we're eating this food now. But of course, we dressed it up a little bit because we're nobles, you know. The second meal that the queen cooks is a tomato soup that's inside of a tomato and basically a veggie burger made out of beans. It looks really adorable. I mean, I want to eat this burger. They bring all the food out and she calls it like McDonald's, but she spells it, you know, in a very Joseon way. So it's like Mac do na do or something like that. I don't know, but it's funny. The people is like Mac do na do. So the king comes up with a really nice name and explanation for this food as well. He says, this looks like meat, but it's not meat. It's made out of beans because we should not eat meat in the wintertime because our people are having a hard time as it is, and we shouldn't take their meat from them. It was a really good explanation. The third one is the dessert, and it's a jelly dessert. The queen calls it a lucky dessert because she puts it on sticks and writes a fortune on it. You don't see the fortune until after you've eaten the whole thing. The fortunes are really funny because they're based on each person, which you'll have to watch the episode to find out. But it's almost like a little dig on each person who reads it with each fortune. The food is a super big hit. You think that everything's going well, but of course, everything goes to pieces. Let me rewind and say what Choi has been doing this whole time. She's been following the Han Shil-jang guy who looks like he's from the present into the city. She finds out his real name by pretending that she's his fan because she says she thinks he's the muscle guy that's inside of her telescope, and he's just super flattered by that. So he signs her telescope, she takes it back and tells him the name, and he is a Han. So he probably is in that Han Shil-jang line of people. In the city, Yang Pyong was sent by the king to get more food, but some bandits destroy all the food. They don't even take the food, they just ruin it so that they can't get it back to the king. So these are just more things that they tell us in the episode of how Jwa-gun is trying to mess up everything in the palace. But it all works out because the queen was able to fix everything with her meals. The other sinister thing that's kind of going on behind the scenes is Jwa-gun tells Byung-in to go do something. So Byung-in goes and does it. And the masked man with the jaw scar is also doing something, and we don't know what he's doing. Hong sees him and recognizes him as maybe that's the masked dude, but he isn't able to get a hold of him. The masked guy gets away. So these are all things that we're like, oh my God, what's about to happen? And we're going to find out what happens because it's big. So the festival is a big hit. However, everything goes wrong because at the end of the festival, before the final ceremony to the ancestors, Jwa-gun comes to the center, says he found out something. What he found out was that the royal guards have been faking their family registries, and they're here to kill the king, basically. He brings out all the royal guards. What he told Byung to do was to attack the royal guards, basically put them in handcuffs and bring them to the front. He wants to kill these royal guards. So he's telling the king, we need to kill all these guards. He makes a big deal about how they need to do this to where the king feels like he's pushed up against the wall. Jwa-gun also kind of digs a little bit and asks him, did he think that getting these other concubine families on his side was going to do something? And the concubine fathers look kind of guilty at that as well. So it seems like Jwa-gun has already gotten to them, and they're on the Kim's side. It's just all so devastating. The king has this nightmare, like this waking nightmare that he's a puppet once again, and Dragon and the Grand Queen are controlling him. 2 tears fall. He's just super devastated at the whole thing. So he tells Dragon to just do what he has to do. The festival has to continue though. So the king walks to this stage that's been set up where he can pay his respects to all of the ancestors. He goes up on stage, lights some incense, puts it in a pot with some dirt in the pot, and starts to read a scroll about just good luck with harvest and all those things in Korea. When he finishes reading the scroll, a huge explosion goes off and it shoots him back, like flies him back, and he hits the ground. Everyone's like, what just happened? But you know, Dragon knows what happened. Hits the ground, the queen is shocked. She runs to him. The Grand Queen looks shocked. Everyone looks shocked except Dragon, might know what's going on. They all try to grab the king, but the queen gets held back by Byung-in, so she's not allowed to go to the king. That's where the episode ends. A lot happens. And it looks like even more is going to happen in the next episode. Next week, we are going to do a preview breakdown of that episode to see all the little goodies that we can find to help tide us over until the next week episode. So look for that really soon. All right, that is the end of our recap for episode 12, and we will see you on the next episode.